Welcome everyone to our Clean Start Perspectives today. She's going to be with Jennifer Venema, Sustainability Program Manager of the City of Sacramento. Now, the City of Sacramento is committed to making sustainable and the city sustainable, and it means thinking about the future without compromise and growing in a environmentally conscious way. If you're curious to learn more about that, I'm going to put in the chat a link to their sustainability page. And I'd also like to welcome back another guest that we have today, Julia Burrows, Senior Policy Advisor to Mayor Steinberg. Now, she's actually the first returning guest that we've had on Clean Start's morning meetings. So, yay, there's a milestone on that. Thank you very much. And before we get started, I want to take this time to thank our sponsors that enable us to put this on. SMUD, Moss Adams, Sacramento State, the College of Engineering and Computer Science, PIM Motion, Weintraub Tobin, Blue Tech Valley, and lots of smaller donors that help us keep these going. And if you want to help us keep these going, I'm going to drop just a quick link so you can support us through PayPal if you wish, and then get your name up there. All right. And with that, we're going to hop right into our Clean Start Perspectives. I'm going to let Julia, I guess I'm going to stop sharing my slides and I'll let Jennifer take over and Julia do the introduction.
Great. Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm Julia Burrows, as Thomas said, Senior Policy Advisor to Mayor Steinberg. And just by way of introduction, we are here today because we are moving forward with one of the recommendations out of the Mayor's Climate Commission. And that is to move forward with an all-electric ordinance for new construction in the city of Sacramento that Jennifer will get to. But I just wanted to lay the stage for the Clean Start audience, which is, I guess, to focus on three things. The first is the cities, when we're looking at the river here, of Sacramento and West Sacramento have set a goal of being carbon neutral by 2045. And we want to do our part and contribute to mitigating climate change and adapting to climate change here in our region. We know it's an existential crisis. And this group has been working on clean technology, clean energy, mobility for many years together. And we wanted to make sure that we brought this to you. And Laura's commenting that she'll be dead by 2045. I don't think so, but we're going to try to accelerate this with your work. So what are all of the programs and policies and ordinances that the city needs to adopt to get to that carbon neutral? We think one of the first and most important is to require new construction to not use fossil fuel, to go all electric with our partners at SMUD. The second piece of this is how do we support the clean tech and clean energy community in Sacramento by really asking you to help us with the new technology that needs to be invented, with telling the story of the benefits of being all electric and not using fossil fuels. So we're here to ask for your advocacy and support in this work. And we really do think that there are ways to leverage existing technology and to invent new technologies. And we want so much of that to happen here in Sacramento in actually three different sectors. The first is the built environment and electrification. The second is in mobility, and we have the ITE, we have the ITS at UC Davis, and the third is food systems. And so the list of companies that you are highlighting in your program the evening of November 12th, we're very interested in seeing. So what are the policies and programs? We need your advocacy. We're looking specifically electrification, mobility, and food systems. And how do we drive cost savings is a second piece of that. First, it's technology, driving policy. Second, cost savings. How do we drive down the cost so that this just becomes, it's just the way we do business. And the third is, how do we boost employment in the clean energy sector? And Gary and I have been working on this since 2010. I stepped out for a while, now I'm stepping back in. And so at every level of the employment ladder, from the apprentice and the internships in our high schools to full-time employment, to the highest level engineering and systems work, how do we create those opportunities here in our Sacramento region and fully leverage the resources that we have all the way from UC Davis to Sac State to this ecosystem that you've built? and create jobs. We're going to need this as part of COVID recovery. It's a public health crisis post-COVID. It's an economic opportunity for employment to really leverage everything that we have going on in the region. So we're taking a first step with this electric ordinance, but we want to be all in with all of you and your membership to really drive everything as far as policy and programs, cost savings, how do we hire these employees, and how do we do good work together. So thank you so much for your time. And our wonderful new interim climate lead, Jennifer Venema, who has been working on electric vehicles, and all of you know that for her past career here at the city, has now been promoted to be the lead in the city manager's office for all things climate. And we're so excited about this. She presented to City Council November 10th, as she'll continue to present as part of the Planning Commission work and City Council work on electrification. And so congratulations to Jennifer, well deserved. And I just love working with her. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julia. Really appreciate that and very much value and love working with you as well. And just excited to be here with the team. Thank you so much for having us. Julia really set the context, and we're excited to move forward on this together. So I will walk through. You should be able to see my slides. Let me know if that's not the case. I'll walk us through what this means in terms of the ordinance and moving forward on the policy and regulatory side to really create that shift and to foster that innovation that Julia was laying out for us, and just incredible all the work that CleanStart does here in our community. So thank you. So at a high level, this is about the city's goals to achieve carbon neutrality. And over the last nearly 2 years, Mayor Steinberg and Mayor Cabaldon together convened the Commission on Climate Change. Many of you here have probably participated in the numerous roundtables. This include folks from our business communities, our real estate communities, to our government agencies and our environmental advocates and more. And they came with a broad list of recommendations for how West Sacramento and Sacramento could achieve carbon neutrality by 2045. Chief amongst those key strategies was the recommendation about electrification of new construction, and with that, also the shift of existing construction off of gas infrastructure, which will also be longer term investment in jobs and how we're improving the built environment. As was mentioned, the city has been doing a lot in the way of electrification of vehicles for quite some time. Our goal is to become the zero emission vehicle capital of California, with 75,000 of these vehicles in just 5 years. We've got a lot of work to do, but with the governor's new executive order and with the leadership by our mayor and council, we are moving and working hard. So that's the context. Now, looking very specifically at what city staff have been directed to do on an accelerated timeline, it is to move forward with an ordinance. So what that means is to amend city code to impose new standards that are essentially mandating these shifts in the built environment away from gas. This is supported by the state framework, which is now getting us towards carbon neutrality by 2045 in terms of the energy of the grid. And this is also recognizing that through the code, it's we can tackle both the energy that the buildings use and make it easier for cars parked at those buildings to have the option to plug in rather than go and fuel up at a gas station. A number of cities have already been doing this throughout the state of California. The city of Berkeley was the first to ban natural gas. 8, in fact, now require it for new construction. And we have well over 20 cities that have actually enacted standards that exceed the state minimum for EV capability, readiness, or installations in new construction. We also have a number of home builders in our region that are already building all electric. We know that it's feasible and cost effective for low-rise construction in particular, and that in many instances we are getting there even for higher density developments. SMUD has been a key partner in this, and we're working very closely with the SMUD team as we move forward. And here's just a few examples of projects in our region that have been constructed all electric that are available now and operating. So building from, again, the experience that we have in our region. Also recognizing that this gets to important health benefits within our buildings. Cooking a meal on a gas stove is actually creating more pollution in your house, in your kitchen, than is produced by the power plants outdoors that have to comply with a lot of regulations and laws. They're actually cleaner than what we're doing in our kitchen. So this is an impact on our health. It's contributing to asthma. This is something that by requiring all electric construction, we are ensuring that our new buildings are healthier and resilient and more prepared for the future, and providing people with long livelihoods of health as well, with equal opportunity. So what does it mean in terms of what we're bringing forward? So on August 25th, City Council passed a motion providing direction to staff on how to move forward on a number of the Climate Commission strategies. What you see here on the screen is breaking down what this means to operationalize it for the building sector. So we're moving forward as really vetted by the Climate Commission to first require electrification of new buildings that are 3 stories or less. The ordinance will go into effect in 2023. And in 2026, provided all of the studies are there to demonstrate cost effectiveness for higher rise buildings, we would then require this for all new construction. In addition, we will be requiring that new development exceeds the state standards for EV capability, 20% capability in new development with at least 1 EV charger installed for non-single family buildings. Plus, we're providing supportive amendments in the Planning and Development Code, which would provide further incentives and parking reductions for the inclusion of additional EV chargers. Now, this is really an approach that balances our policy goals with the realities of the market. We have prioritized in the city moving forward and removing barriers to the construction of housing, particularly affordable housing. So by moving forward with a package that requires all electric with EV capability, this is a scenario that is cost neutral and actually beneficial. By requiring EV capability, as shown on your screen, there's a marginal cost of about $800 per space. However, by packaging it with development that does not include natural gas infrastructure, we see savings of anywhere from $13,000 to upwards of $60,000, depending on the type of project. So what we are requiring on the EV side is, as you see here, capability, which means provision of adequate electrical capacity and a pathway for future conduit, plus, as I mentioned earlier, at least 1 charger installed, so that we're getting some visibility. Folks are realizing what it means to put it in. It's helping developers to make that connection and helping the public to realize it's there. We think if we were to move forward and say, require EV installation at every spot, that adds a lot of cost. So we're balancing to try to bring forward a recommendation that we truly believe is as minimal of an ask and is actually optimizing and providing those benefits for builders and long-term for the occupants. This is getting at multifamily residents and housing that otherwise would be more challenged to charge. And this is ensuring that we don't have to go in after the fact to trench and do more expensive work to then retrofit construction down the road to provide the chargers that we will need for our all-electric goals. with that, in terms of timeline, as Julia mentioned, tonight staff will be back at the Planning and Design Commission to present an overview of the framework for this ordinance, which I've just run through. Staff are working on the ordinance. The plan is to bring back the actual draft ordinance in December or January to then come forward to City Council with a recommendation in March for approval. Now, important to note, although the ordinance would be approved in early 2021, as we mentioned earlier, it would not go into effect until 2023 at the earliest. So we're providing that ramp up time and have a lot of opportunity to continue working with stakeholders and helping to do the hard work that Julia was describing of really connecting those opportunities to spur innovation in the community and build up that pipeline of jobs. So that concludes our presentation. Now, Julia and I are here to talk today. This is a project led in the community development team here at the city. Helen Self is our lead. I've provided her contact information, and I meant to put our emails, but I will drop those in the chat. You can also find the framework online through the city's 2040 General Plan update website. So with that, I'll stop, and we are here for any questions before we wrap. Thank you.
Excellent. One thing I wanted to quickly highlight is that if anyone's curious about all the savings around electrification and how beneficial this actually is, I'm dropping a link to a video that we had in the past where Panama Bartholomew described all the benefits and how critical it is that we actually electrify now and why we can electrify now. Now, Gary, did I hear you had a question there? Or?
Well, what do you think, either Jennifer or Julia, might there be incentives in the future for electrifying existing buildings, reduced permit requirements or cost, or what do we do about the existing building stock? And I know you've thought about that with the mayor's commission, so I just wanted to get that question on the table.
That is a great question, Gary. And Julia, feel free to jump in. That's something where we're very lucky to have SMUD leadership. Sacramento is the best place in the country to go all electric, as we've been told multiple times, because of the incentives that are available to do so. What's going to be really hard is getting into existing homes and doing it project by project. So we are thinking about that, and that's part of the work over the next coming year and beyond to really chart our path. So it's an important topic, and we're paying a lot of attention to it, working on that with SMUD.
And Gary, the Mayor's Climate Commission did adopt a timeline, which is for us to have 25% of our existing buildings retrofitted in the next 10 years by 2030. And so we've been directed to include that in a city work program to figure out how best to do that. It all comes down to financing and funding. And probably the most important piece of that too is to do that in an equitable manner so that the last folks on the gas lines are not the ones in our lowest income neighborhoods paying high gas rates. So of course, we will be looking for ways to finance and fund that in addition to the SMUD incentives. We do look forward optimistically with a Biden administration that will be looking at infrastructure and clean energy funding in a significant way. And we'd like to be ready to spend some of those funds here in Sacramento to retrofit existing buildings. And it also, looking at job creation, we want to keep our plumbers and pipe fitters busy. They'll have opportunities as we shut down gas lines to do that, as we upgrade, even make investments in housing that could use some investments. So it's very top of mind. It is a goal that has been set, and it's something that we need to do to truly remove fossil fuels from the built environment. And hopefully we'll have a schedule put together here this year.
So I have a question. From with my experience in EVs, a lot of it, initially the EVs hit the market, it caters more to, I guess, the higher income levels. Now, a lot of the benefits on a lot of the on retrofits and electrification can go to basically the underserved community and really support them. How is the city planning on reaching them and kind of informing them of these options? Because a lot of them might not be as, like connected with SAC EV because they don't have that historical, or that hasn't been something that's part of their network.
Very good question, Thomas. It's something that's so important to us. We submitted a grant request to the Energy Commission for $2 million, which would allow us to do a lot of things in the EV space, including a deep racial equity analysis, intensive stakeholder engagement, compensating participants for their time to give us feedback and advice, and partnering with UC Davis to do a study. So looking for resources to do that better. On the other hand, another key outcome of the Mayor's Commission on Climate Change was to call for the need to create an environmental justice collaborative governance committee. So the city is working with our community-based partners to start that, and it's really about a committed learning process. We also have a lot of investment and focus from the Air District and from SMUD, and we have a lot to build from. A long ways to go, but this is a priority for us so that these shifts are really tools to achieve our access and inclusivity goals as well.
And another kind of question on the same thing. So a lot of the, I guess, the rental housing stock isn't controlled by large management groups, because I've noticed large management groups, they do want to pick up and improve the housing that they have and are more likely to electrify it. But since most of the rental housing stock is not managed by large groups, how is there a way to kind of go after them or engage them to say, hey, we want you to electrify your building for a benefit that mostly goes to their renter? But how are you going to bring them into the fold when there's so many of them, and usually they just, they're not as inclined to do small improvements that they're not going to see benefits to?
No, that's one we're going to definitely keep working on. I think starting where we can find that leadership in the community and getting early results and small wins. The goal will be to make a situation where folks want to jump on board and see the benefit in bringing in public investment or helping to secure easier to access finance mechanisms, or connecting them where, right now a lot of this infrastructure you could pay for it with rebates from the state. There's a lot we can do to provide turnkey programs, and so that's some of the challenge before us. Very good question.
So Jennifer, we've got some questions here. One from Ling Hung Lee at DAE Tech in Davis is, what are the most wanted technologies and products for the program? So let me put some more context on that. We have the rules of the Energy Commission that say all new residential buildings up to a certain size have to have solar panels installed. That certainly contributes towards the goals of electrification you've talked about. But we also have problems dealing with the intermittency of solar. Is there thought here on forming up neighborhood energy storage packages, not doing them necessarily in every home, but to get the cost down, or microgrids, or, what other technology innovations do you think would be helpful in advancing the cause of electrification here? Because we have, of course, our whole clean tech community eager to help and have some new technology. So is there a technology angle to this that you can talk about?
Really good question. We know that net energy metering is an important topic to be working through as part of the electrification program. And I think there's certainly opportunity for creativity, but part of it is what do we need to do on the regulatory side to allow for innovations like neighborhood grids. So that's a conversation and work to be done with SMUD. The one technology we hear the most about is cooking. And we know there's great induction technologies out there, but simple appliances, and I think helping to just grow that consumer awareness, even just on the simpler turnkey side of appliances in the home versus appliances for the grid. But these are the opportunities we want to keep working on, exploring, and learning from the community together. So thank you for that great thought.
I know I'm looking forward to the cooking with induction. For those of you that aren't familiar, there's an Instagram campaign by gas companies to do cooking with gas. So if you think about a way that you want to be able to help electrification, talk about how excited you are about electrifying cooking to our audience out there, because influencers are getting paid to cook with gas, and talk about how great it is and no one's really there's not enough people talking about how induction cooking is really efficient and better. It's not your standard electric grill that most people think about. It's actually really cool. So.
Yeah, I think there's a lack of information on the
Mhm.
induction cooking. And from what Panama said when he came to talk, there's been great advances in all of that. So people just aren't familiar with it. That could be an important part of getting people comfortable with what electrification actually means. Maybe we'll have a cook-off out there in a neighborhood park, all done with induction cooking.
And we need to broadcast that, Gary. This is Julia. We do need your help on the advocacy for induction cooking, especially if you know of chefs who can help us do that influence campaign. That would be fantastic. And homeowners who already have it, like Laura and Thomas, who can do that. I would say on the other technology pieces, that was one of the comments that we did have from the business community, was that perhaps the technology was not there for high-rise development. And looking at heat pumps and, how do we heat water? How do we heat and cool spaces in high-rise buildings? And we know that there's some building science reports that will be coming out of PG&E and SMUD. And any assistance, any advice that you have on explaining that the technology is there, we need to get the costs down. And I think that's the other issue. And that's actually in the language of the Mayor's Climate Commission report, is to make sure that we're mindful of costs and installations there. And I do hope that in our region, we can do some battery storage projects. For example, we have an offer from Lennar Homes Foundation to bring up some housing for our homeless or permanent transitional housing from a really interesting company called VEEV, V-E-E-V. They're manufacturing in Union City, and their patents are on steel frame construction and Corian. They actually sheet print Corian, like a Corian counter, but the Corian is the walls, it's the floor, it's the countertops, everything is Corian. And we want to use that project to do some solar on the roof and perhaps some battery storage. So it's a zero net energy community. It looks like it will happen here in the next few months. And we would love to have any opportunities to lobby the CEC for grants to do battery storage, projects where these communities that are coming in are essentially, paying for themselves, because we need to keep the operations costs so low when we're providing housing for our homeless residents. So any of those demonstration projects that you can let us know, or, hey, I've got this idea, we can help leverage and advocate for those.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Courtney just shared a link to the rebates SMUD has for home electronic appliances. Is SMUD growing those and continuing with those? I see some people from SMUD on the line. I know they've slowed down on some things because of COVID. But it's good to see them continuing with the rebates on that.
Ryan Hammond's on the line.
I think they are, Jennifer, right?
Mhm.
They're continuing those.
Yeah, I believe so. That's our understanding. Yeah,
Yes, most
there's a
definitely.
commitment.
Great.
Excellent.
So, Julia, I see a combination here, a farm to fork and induction cooking demonstration. So
Yes.
we'll get Bobbin to help us out on that.
Yes. Although they love their gas at that restaurant in particular.
Yeah, I'm thinking that that's probably the best one to do a demonstration.
Yeah. Soil-borne farms can help us out too. I think we have some literal farm to fork
Yeah.
where we have Sean Harrison in his kitchen that could probably.
Well, there's another good example.
Yeah.
All right. You've given us something to think about there and a good challenge, Julia.
We need your help. Yes.